Welcome to the Alpha Gal Outdoorsman Podcast, where we talk all things Alpha Gal and all things outdoors. Everything from hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, canoeing, kayaking, jeeping, off-roading, even gardening. I'm your host, Robert Worley. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Gal Outdoorsman. As the intro just said, I am your host, Robert Worley. I got a first on today. Got a guest from Missouri, which is a first for me. I'm gonna put a thumbtack in that state. Um, but before we get started here, I got a couple quick announcements. First announcement is an update on House Bill 578 for Ohio, and that is the update is there is no update. It's the world of politics. So the House bill is now in the Senate Health Committee, just like it was for our last episode. It hasn't moved. Now, I will say that today's date is June 25th, and this episode will come out on July the 15th. So I really don't foresee anything happening by July 15th because I think they're going on summer break. I don't know how long that is, but um, it still looks positive. The chair of the health committee in the Senate is, we've already spoke with him on the phone. I've been on the phone with him personally myself, and he supports the bill. So it looks good. And with that being said, I have a guest from Missouri. I will say that I have been in contact with Representative Matthew Overcast from Missouri, and they have House Bill 2372 that has passed the House and has passed the Senate and is laying on their governor's desk. Now, I don't know, maybe our guest today will know a little about that bill. I don't know anything about it yet, but I'm hoping to have an update with him. He was going to give me enough time to have a brief conversation about the House bill and tell me the benefits, for Alpha Gal, whether it's labeling or mandatory reporting or both. We'll see. But I haven't been able to get that patched up yet. So hopefully our guest can help us today. So without any further ado, our guest today is Jenna Olcott. Did I say that right, Jenna?
Yes.
Olcott? So Jenna
hmm
Olcott from Missouri, and she's a farmer and an avid outdoorsman. Looks like she does a lot of hiking and camping and so forth and so on. So hello, Jenna.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you're here. So, before we get too started, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Whereabouts in the state you live and so forth. Married, kids, the whole nine yards.
So I'm in Lawson, Missouri, which it's a small town. So probably the best way to put it is I'm about 45 minutes northeast of Kansas City, or just south of Cameron, Missouri, if you know where that is. We have a 60-acre farm and we rent an additional 40 acres next to us and run cattle and goats on it. And then also just have some chickens and turkeys and random fowl like that. We have added emus into our farm since myself getting Alpha Gal. Um, I am, like I said, I am married, have 4 kids, so I'm the only one in my house that has Alpha Gal, but it has definitely affected everyone else here in addition to just myself.
Yeah, without a doubt, I'm sure it has. How long have you had Alpha Gal?
I was bitten. I had a Lone Star tick in 2019. I can't really remember exactly at what point in 2019. I do distinctly remember having it because I found it in the morning and like had thought like, oh, how gross, this tick has been on me since yesterday, most likely. And it was a Lone Star tick. It itched. The tick spot probably itched for 2 months after I
Yeah.
pulled it. Didn't really notice anything initially after that, other than it just itched. I didn't think much of it because it didn't look red or anything. But then it was December of 2019 when I had my first anaphylaxis experience at a high school music program right before Christmas, which was real great for all of us to go through. Not
I can
really
imagine.
the ideal place. Yeah. And so then it was early 2020 when I really started noticing like digestive issues. And it just kind of kept spiraling from there, worse and worse. And then also being in the midst of COVID didn't help matters at all because it took longer to get into doctors. But really for me in the beginning, it was a lot of GI issues. I didn't even think about that first anaphylaxis experience as part of what was going on because I'd never had experienced an allergic reaction prior to that. And so I just thought it was a weird, isolated event and had brushed it aside. But I started dealing with a lot of stomach pain, particularly like by my gallbladder, which is what led me to go to the doctor. They did an ultrasound, and I think it was called a HITA scan. I don't know if I'm saying that right, on my gallbladder that measures the function of your gallbladder, how well it's emptying, and everything was perfect. They're like, your gallbladder's fine, but they still could not figure out what was going on with me. So at that point, my doctor referred me to a surgeon because he's just like, well, it's got to be your gallbladder. The surgeon was like, well, your gallbladder seems fine, but I think we should go ahead and remove it because it would probably help. And at that point, I was like, you literally just said my gallbladder's working fine. And he said, wouldn't it be nice to be able to eat spaghetti and not feel so sick afterwards?
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just like, this is crazy. Like, this just wasn't, to me, something wasn't right. Nothing kind of added up. And then we were actually camping down in South Missouri, probably a good 30 minutes from even an urgent care. Had tacos for dinner. About 10 o'clock that night, woke up full blown anaphylaxis again, which was, again, like, I feel like I managed to have my worst reactions in the least ideal places. That one, camping and anaphylaxis, is not a great combo,
Yeah,
but
I can
that's really
imagine.
kind of what got the ball rolling, and then got me in with a GI specialist who thought I had GERD. That still didn't work. Had anaphylaxis again, and that got me to an allergist who ended up diagnosing me in 2021. It was in November, with
Holy
alpha gal.
wow.
Yeah, so almost a good, I mean, just shy of 2 years from the first time I had anaphylaxis to when I was actually diagnosed with alpha gal.
Is your anaphylaxis, was it breathing or was it a different something symptom?
So when I have anaphylaxis, it starts with, I usually am having extreme stomach pain leading up to it. And then the first telltale sign for me is my hands and feet start itching and burning. It's just like this excessive hot itch in the palms of my hands and my feet. And then from there, I go into full body hives, swollen lips, coughing, stomach issues. The worst one ever, right before I was diagnosed, like, my blood pressure must have been low because I was like getting dizzy trying to get up.
Yeah.
Luckily, and even my doctor said, because I did not have an EpiPen at that point, took Benadryl, and he was like, "You are extremely lucky that Benadryl took care of that for you." He's like,
Yeah.
"That was a
Yeah.
really scary episode."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you I'm sure you got EpiPens now, right? We
oh
all
yeah,
tend to pack them around
we all have
now.
EpiPens. Yep,
Yeah. So you went 2 years. How many times was you in anaphylaxis before you was diagnosed?
3 or 4 times
Okay.
in
Have
between
you,
that very first one and diagnosis.
since you've been diagnosed and learned, have you been in anaphylaxis since then?
Yes,
Multiple
and since
times or just,
um three times since 2021.
wow.
So not
So,
too bad.
how, let's back up for just a second. So you got diagnosed, you finally got to a specialist that diagnosed you with alpha gal, but how was your other doctors? Did you go back to your primary physician after that?
Yes, so my primary was great. And also, like, with it being COVID, there were several times where I had called him on the phone at the office. And I remember one very distinct conversation where I had told him, I'm like, maybe this doesn't have anything to do with whatever's going on. I'm like, but my knuckles hurt so bad. I'm like, I don't have arthritis, but it feels like how people describe arthritis. I'm like, my knuckles hurt so bad, especially at night. And he said, none of this makes any sense. And at that point, I thought, I'm like, either I am losing my mind or I have just something completely crazy wrong with me. And ironically, I had come across Alpha Gal in a Google search, searching my symptoms, and honestly thought it seemed like a bogus article because nobody had heard of it at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so the doctor was very helpful after that, but what was his knowledge level like? Did he know anything or was he learning with you?
He was learning with me. He had sent me to an allergist after the third time I had had anaphylaxis pre-diagnosed. The allergist knew of alpha-gal and knew to test for it. He had specifically asked if I had had a tick bite. And I thought, like, I mean, living in the Midwest, who hasn't had a tick bite?
Right, right. Yeah,
And so when it came back alpha gal, even my husband was like, there's no way, like, you live on a cattle farm, we eat beef all the time.
yeah,
Um, but going back into my primary, he was like, every time I've been there, he's like, tell me, if you've learned anything new about alpha gal, because I was his first patient to have it. He's asked a lot of questions, never questioned anything that I've said has been a symptom, like has been a very good listener and always open to everything that I have had to say about alpha gal since diagnosis. So it
yeah,
was a learning process for both of us.
yeah, yeah. So let me ask you about your hands. So, not necessarily the joint pain, but you say they burn bad. Have you ever had any blisters come up on
No, just hives. It is like,
them?
so when I have anaphylaxis, my fingers will swell, but like it starts like in the palm of my hand and it's like this hot, searing, itchy pain. And I've heard other people describe their anaphylaxis the same way, that they can kind of feel it coming on in their hands first. And my hives will then start like at my wrist and spread from
Yeah,
there.
yeah. A reason I ask is because the lady from Canada, Leanne's her name. One of her symptoms is the palms of her hands get uh and I didn't. She called them blisters. I wonder if they're hives, and she's not 100% sure. And when you said your hands, it's it's kind of funny how doing this podcast, how things come together like this. Like I've been talking
Mhm.
with her for the past month over her symptoms, her possible diagnosis because it's Canada. Uh, is it true? Is it not true? She sent me the results. It is the right test. She tested 0.35, I think is what it was, which is a positive.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting that you brought that up. So I want to ask you: have you since the diagnosis, your anaphylaxis that you've had, have you had to use your EpiPen?
No, I have my doctor had personally said to always try Benadryl first. I know that there is some controversy with that groups that deal with, I can't think the word I'm looking for. It is recommended to use your EpiPen first if you suspect anaphylaxis. I am out in the country. My doctor had said first time I use an EpiPen, I need to go to the hospital after using it. The two recent times when I should have used it post diagnosis, it was just me and my kids here at the house. I really didn't want to put them through driving their mother to the
Yeah,
hospital.
right.
And so I have always tried Benadryl first. Should I have used the
Yeah,
EpiPen? Absolutely. If I was talking to someone else, I would say use your EpiPen first. I was just worried about my kids having to take me to the hospital at 11 o'clock at night. And I thought if I
yeah,
can get this taken care of again with Benadryl like I had in the past, then I need to try
yeah.
that first.
Well,
That
I
is
think
definitely not a medical recommendation.
yeah, yeah. Well, neither one of us are doctors. I always try to say
Right.
that, but I think I don't think I know our allergies much different than others.
I agree.
And so what works for other allergies, not necessarily the right call for us. So I think your Benadryl. I think for you, you keep doing you for sure. I do like the advice of don't be afraid of that EpiPen. I've had
Absolutely.
multiple guests say the same thing. Don't be afraid of that EpiPen. If you're getting to that point, use it. You live on you're 100 acres, so you're cattle farmer, and I think you said goats as well. Is that
Yep.
correct? Yep.
Yes,
When do you have any kind of like an airborne or being around the livestock? Does it affect you in any way?
it does. Prior to like realizing that actually being around cattle affects me, like after diagnosis and you cut out meat, you kind of start hearing about other things that alpha gal can cause, like fume reaction
Yeah.
to cooking meats. And so I noticed that if we were cooking sausage or something or bacon, like I was having respiratory reactions to that. So I knew that respiratory reactions were a possibility. Hadn't quite put two and two together with being around the cattle actually causing a problem until we were up working cattle one day. We had had a cow that had a calf stuck, and my husband needed help pulling it.
Hmm.
And I mean, anybody that lives with animals will tell you, like, when you have a situation like that, you don't typically stand back and be like, well, I might start coughing and get itchy. Like you jump in and
You
react.
get everybody gets yeah, everybody gets
Yep.
involved. Yeah.
So I had gloves on, helped pull the calf, ended up being twins. So it was a little bit of a longer process than normal. And I had gotten amniotic fluid on my arms. And my eyes were very itchy and I was coughing a little bit and hadn't, in the moment, hadn't connected all three
Sure.
symptoms together. Looked
Sure.
down at my arms and where they had been, where the amniotic fluid had gotten on them, I had like this just bright red, thick rash. Almost looked like if you got hot water on your arm and scalded yourself. And so I'm coughing and my eyes are itchy. And just all of a sudden, my head was like, oh my gosh, like I think that this is from alpha gal, from being up close to the animal, having amniotic fluid on me, and then just with the manure and the bodily fluids and airborne things, breathing that in. And so I came inside, washed off, and within like 30 minutes after coming in, I felt like my whole like system just went like, like calm back down. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And so then I start kind of looking into it more and had found the Facebook page Alpha Gal for Farmers and Ranchers. And that was extremely helpful because you kind of get some step-by-step guides on what to do when you find out you have Alpha Gal when it comes to food and things like that. But you don't think about outside influences like cattle and working
Right.
with them. So I knew from then on, like amniotic fluid definitely is a no-no, and started paying attention more to how I physically felt and was breathing just being around the cattle in general.
Yeah. So, so I can 100% see where that the fluids in the blood and whatever. But
Mhm.
if you just go to the barn and feed, are you usually pretty good if you just like go to the barn and feed and
If it is muddy up there, if it is wet, it definitely bothers me a lot more.
yeah,
Seems like I get more of a reaction to the manure when it's fresh or wet versus dry. So we do rotational grazing. So we only have a couple cows that we're ever feeding out for butcher up in the lot. And so my husband or kids are the ones that take care of feeding everybody. I am able to step back and not have to help near as much
yeah,
anymore. There's always kind of an emergency situation where I do have to step in and do something. But we've realized that even we were hauling cattle one day and I was riding along and my husband got in the truck and he had manure on his boots. And I I mean, it just starts like itching on my face, my nose, my eyes itch. And then I was coughing to the point where like I could not stop coughing. And it was so bad, he had to pull over and take his shoes off on the side of the highway and put them in the back of the truck and drive barefoot to the sale barn.
yeah,
So I know that, and with other farmers and ranchers talking to them, like you know your triggers and you know how to prevent them or steps to take to reduce exposure. And so for me, it's staying away from fresh manure,
yeah,
amniotic fluids, bodily fluids from the animal. But like I
yeah.
said, we had a calf born early this year when it was cold out. She came early and it was just my kids home and the calf had to come into the mudroom for a while to warm up. And so it was very hard to limit my exposure to it being in the mudroom of the house.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. That's
hmm
country life right there for sure. Yeah.
Isn't it? Yep.
Yeah. I've been a big game hunter my whole life and uh, just thinking about you pulling that calf. And a lot of people don't understand that. I do understand that. I'm kind of raised country. But um I remember the first time I had to field dress a deer. I was like, and that was like, what do I do? I just got to get in there. I was very careful, went very slow. But I was very fortunate. It didn't affect me. It didn't affect me. So I'm very fortunate there for sure. You mentioned emus. So
Yes.
uh, before you got emus, had you ordered any and tried it?
I had ordered both ostrich and emu online, and just tried it kind of in small amounts. And then, like I said, we always have a few cattle that we're raising for butcher that we sell, and we keep one for ourselves. And so we've always had a whole deep freezer of farm raised meat for us. And I was buying all this meat for myself, and one day just kind of thought, I think we could probably do this ourselves. And we actually started with an ostrich, and had that here on the farm, raised it for a while, and had to self-process it because so many small butchers are not USDA regulated to butcher fowl. So a
Oh, I
lot of
see. Yeah.
people, yep, a lot of people that do raise ostrich and emu struggle finding a place where they can take it and get it butchered that's within a close proximity to
Yeah.
where they live. So
How much, so you've butchered the ostrich. How much meat did you get off? How many pounds do you think you got?
We estimate it to be about 75 pounds of meat.
Oh,
It was it was definitely a learning process. For all of us, there's not a good, you can't just really Google like, how do you butcher an ostrich? And so we just took
yeah. Yeah.
knowledge from, we've processed chickens and turkeys ourselves.
Yeah.
Years back, we actually processed our own hog. And so I felt like between the knowledge of the two, we should be able to figure out how to process an ostrich. And we bought a meat
Yeah.
grinder, and the kids all helped, and we just kind of had an assembly line and took care of all of it. But I ended up getting about 75 pounds of meat off of the ostrich, and it lasted me 2 years.
Is that right? That's awesome.
Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, we used to butcher all of our own deer, and we would, before as season come in, we would set the garage up. I know a lot of people can't relate. We'd set the garage up, and that's where the butcher tables was at, the grinders, and we would call it beer and deer. And
Yep.
all my buddies would come over, my hunting buddies, and we would butcher the deer. We'd put the George Foreman out there. We'd have a few beers and beer and deer, and we'd have beer and deer phase one, beer and deer phase two,
Hmm.
depending on how good the season was. But
Yep. We used to
I
call
do
that
miss.
deer camp.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I miss that. I miss that for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. Now the emu. Have you butchered any emus yet?
So that is on the agenda between now and the next 2 weeks. So
Oh, I got
I'm
you.
right at the very end of the ostrich meat, and so we're going to butcher an emu. And in my mind, it should be very similar process, just smaller scale. I believe you
Yeah,
get about 25 to 30 pounds of meat off of an emu. So
I got you. Yeah, yeah. Do you got a preference, the ostrich or the emu?
I like ostrich better. When I've had emu, the way I described it to my friends and family was that it was like beef if you also had a little bit of deer mixed in with it. To me, I felt like it had just a subtle gamey taste to it.
Yeah,
We'd processed our own deer in the past too, and I think that has kind of like put me off on the gamey taste over time. And so I didn't really like that in the emu. Since we have an emu that needs to be butchered, we're going to give it another shot.
yeah,
I'm hoping that it'll be just fine. So,
yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I order them. I order some ostrich and emu, but like you said, it's just so expensive.
mhm.
There's a new farm, and I wish I could remember the name of it. I probably should have written it down. There's a new farm in Kentucky that a new emu farm, and there's a few locations down there, which I'm in Southwest Ohio. And if you listen to the podcast, I spend a ton of time. But my wife and I are going down for a backcountry hunters and anglers event in between Lexington and Louisville this week or this weekend, and there's a new farm down there, and they distribute the emu meat through a couple different places down there. So I'm gonna try to round some up while I'm there. Um, and I do like the ostrich better. The fillets, oh man,
So good.
oh yeah. The
Yeah,
emu is really good too. Don't get
it
me
is.
wrong, but it's like it's even more like deer. And
Yes.
I've been a deer hunter, elk hunter my whole life. But if somebody tells you they'd rather have a big deer steak than a T-bone or fillet,
Yeah.
they're
I,
lying. They're
I've
making
never
it
heard
up.
anybody say that.
Yeah, they're making it up. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been taking notes a little bit on questions. So everybody else in your family, nobody else has alpha gal, right?
Nope, nobody has it. My kids, I will say, I feel like they are a little scared. Like, what if I get it one day? Because you do hear stories about families where a parent and several kids have it. I know you'd
Yeah.
mentioned Matthew Overcast in Missouri. I believe
Yep.
he has several kids that have alpha gal. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, that is what I think kind of lit his fire to introduce the alpha gal bill in Missouri. So I do think that that makes my kids think more like, oh my gosh, what if I get it? A little bit worried that they have maybe a higher chance of getting it than somebody else just because their mom does. I don't know if that's actually a real concern or not, medically speaking, but it definitely is on their mind anytime they get a tick.
well, I think it's a good thing that they're a little scared because
I
you
think
know,
so
and I
too.
know they don't want it. They don't want it. I don't
Yeah.
want to see them get it. I'm speaking with a young lady right now in Kentucky, Hindman, Kentucky, that's got a 13-year-old son that just came down with it. So I've been chatting with her a little bit recently, and we're going to probably have her on the podcast here in a few episodes away. So if so do you understand what House Bill 2372 is? What it changes? Do you understand that?
I do. So when it was originally introduced, it was mandatory reporting for alpha gal. I believe when they had finally got it passed through earlier this year, they had tacked it on with another bill that had to do with Lyme disease to help push the two through. I don't know about the Lyme part of it, but it is for mandatory reporting for alpha
Okay.
gal in the state of Missouri. We had attended the Alpha Gal Awareness Day at the state capitol back in January, and someone had asked, like, how do they take into account all of the currently diagnosed cases to get an accurate count on how many people in Missouri are affected by alpha gal? And so there would have to be some sort of um, like self-reporting for people that have already been diagnosed, so they can really see how Missouri is affected by alpha gal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in Southwest Ohio. And what
Mhm.
we hear here about you guys out there is that you guys are blown up out there. Now, is that true or?
It seems like it, but it also seems like it's much more prevalent in South Missouri. I mean,
I
there
see.
are cases of it up here in the northern part of Missouri, but I know of one other person who has it, and it is like a friend's aunt's cousin who has
I
it. So I don't
see.
even directly know the person. My doctor, I know they've had one other local case since me, and that's going all the way back to 2021 when I was diagnosed. So there's not a lot of it here in Northwest Missouri, but the south part of the state, it is very prevalent.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you go like where I'm at now, it's here. The Lone Star Tick is definitely here. Um, but I've mentioned Kentucky several times. We spend a lot of time. It's called Red River Gorge, Natural Bridge area. It's in
Mhm.
Kentucky. It's in eastern Kentucky. Um, it's incredible how I mean, you go down there and you mention alpha gal. It's very common. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody knows what it means. Everybody where I live, when I got it, there was people like, "There's no such thing. What's he making stuff up? He don't want to come to
yeah,
dinner with us." I mean, I've heard every excuse there was. Now, and I am not kidding. Just since so I kind of helped start. I helped a little with getting House Bill 578 rolling, which is mandatory reporting here in Ohio, and it is blown up on the news. When House Bill 578 got written, nobody heard nothing about it, and then it's just like in the past 5 to 6 months or so, it's blown up. It's on the news every day, which is awesome, which is
yeah.
absolutely awesome. So I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully, I can get a short conversation with Matthew on the phone. I know them guys are busy guys, but we've messaged back and forth for a couple of days talking about this. So it did start out as I think House Bill or Senate Bill 1855, and then
1855. Yep.
yeah, and
And I
then they
believe
made
he
some.
introduced it. I think he introduced it first last year. I think it took a good year to go through. I think
Yeah,
that they had to make some adjustments. So I know, like you had said, you're working on it in Ohio. I think you guys will eventually get there. It just definitely, it's a process, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, they already had Lyme and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, so one good thing for us is the system's already in place. So if you go to the
Yeah.
doctor and you got Lyme or Rocky Mountain spotted fever, they got, so all we're doing really is tacking alpha gal onto that. Um, in theory, they've done the numbers. The state of Ohio would have to hire one more employee, full-time employee, if it's even that much to keep up with the new reporting. So it's a very minimal expense if you figure statewide. So um, I think one more question before we move on to some outdoorsy stuff. You got a family, you got a large family, and you are you're cattle farmers, and I'm tell me what a typical dinner time or breakfast time is in your house. I mean, are you cooking? Is everything Alpha Gal friendly across the board? Are you cooking hamburgers and then you're having something else, or
I would say my family, it's still, they're big beef eaters still. So typically for us, I will cook ostrich for me. If we are doing tacos or spaghetti, I'll cook a pound of ostrich. I will save a quarter of it for dinner that night, and then I will freeze the rest of it, the rest of the ground ostrich, so I have it for spaghetti for another night or whatever. So I cook myself what I need and then freeze leftovers. That way, when we have beef another night, I already have my food prepped. If it's something that I'm more fume reactive to, then my kids come up and they help cook dinner. That way I can kind of step back and not have to be in the room.
yeah,
We
yeah,
use separate pans, separate cooking surfaces, like all those steps are in place where we
yeah,
have to prevent cross contamination, but they still get to eat beef anytime they want to. I feel like we've made enough changes in our lives that it wouldn't be fair to everybody to switch over to ostrich, and we'd be butchering a lot of ostriches if that was the case.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, it sounds like you got it worked out. Did you have to change your skillets and pans and did you have to change all that or buy new for you?
so I have my own I cast iron skillets that I cook if I'm doing ostrich or whatever for me inside that I cook my stuff in. They have their separate pans, regular stuff, like just your pan for cooking macaroni and things like that. We just wash stuff good and it's fine. But
Yeah,
skillets, yes. We have a black stone. We cook everything for myself separately from everybody else's.
yeah,
And just we're just cautious. Accidents happen here and there. That's part of life. Same with going out and eating out. We don't eat out a lot anyway, but when we do, I know there's a big fear with people in the alpha gal community about eating out. I would just advocate for myself, make them aware of my allergy, check how they cook things, check what their type of oil is. At the
yeah.
end of the day, I mean, something can always happen, but that's life. I mean, it doesn't even have to be alpha gal related and something can happen. So I just
That's
try to
right. Yeah,
continue to live my life and go on and manage it as
yeah,
best as I can.
yeah. I feel fortunate when it comes. My kids are adults. All live out on their own with their significant others, and so I feel pretty fortunate. My wife is very she we eat alpha gal friendly. Everything we eat now is alpha gal friendly. And unless we go out, and then she might get her a big bacon double cheeseburger or something, but just
Yeah.
about everything here at home, because it's just the two of us. So I guess that's pretty fortunate for us. I
Now,
can't
I will
imagine.
say my kids they'll hear it on here, but they eat dairy free more than what they realize they do.
Oh, is that
So
right? Yeah.
oh yeah, I have
Or,
not, like, if I use dairy-free cream cheese or dairy-free cheese or oat milk or whatever, I don't even tell them that I've replaced milk in a recipe with it because they, might
right.
throw a little fit that it's not as good as they think. They haven't noticed. We have potato
Yeah.
soup and it's got oat milk in it, not regular milk, and I just kind of keep that quiet here
Sure.
and don't tell anybody, and it makes
Yeah.
everything much easier.
I don't mind the oat milk I like it. I
Yeah.
like the oat milk. Yeah. And you know what? You just see, I always say that every episode there's something to learn. I never gave, I missed potato soup and I hadn't really thought about, I said, man, I got to make all that milk, but you're right.
Mhm.
I could see potato soup on my menu probably next week. Yeah.
It's good
So,
with oat milk in it.
yeah. Um, so let's move on a little bit. So, you are an avid outdoors lady as well. You guys tend to do a lot of hiking and camping and so forth. Um, tell me a little about that. You guys just did a big trip around my area too, I hear, huh?
Yeah, we just got back earlier this week. We cut through Ohio, went to Hocking Hills, did some hiking around there, went down into West Virginia to the New River Gorge area, um, did the bridge walk, did some hiking there around the national park, and then spent a little time in Virginia and North Carolina and Kentucky, before we made our loop back home.
Yeah. Hiking, lots of hiking.
Lots of hiking. My kids would tell you that I'm the type where I'm like, it's just 2 miles and we're gonna be gone half the afternoon
Yeah.
on a 10-mile hike that I've tried to squeak in there and not tell anybody how hard it was actually gonna be.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
hiking. I
Yeah.
know it's been mentioned in other groups with farmers with Alpha Gal, would because some who it is their main source of income have had to step away from it because it affects them so much. For me, like I couldn't give up hiking and camping because of alpha gal. And so that's what I love to do. So we're just more cautious about ticks. We use DEET, we use permethrin
Yeah.
and are just careful. But I yeah, like when it's summertime, I could spend the whole summer on a hiking trip somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds a lot like my wife and I. Same thing. Same thing.
Yeah.
And every vehicle we have, and I'm not kidding, from my work truck to my daily driver to my wife, is you open it up and look in the door, there's a can of deep. Both
Yeah.
sides usually. And I've said this on the podcast so many times, we got a couple hunting trips. We got spring turkey down in Kentucky, and we do a rifle hunt in Kentucky. And my buddies, it's a standing rule. We get there usually the night before, and permethrin and the DEET all goes on the porch, and everybody sprays down. Spray down, or don't come. It's just a standing rule. Um, but I don't have to. There's no arguing or bickering. Probably the same with your kids. They don't want this stuff. Yeah.
No.
So what'd you think of Hawking Hills? Cool place, huh?
I on my list of places to hike, Ohio was never on the list, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when we came across Hocking Hills on a Google search, I told my friends, I'm like, this doesn't even look like what you would expect Ohio to have. Like it's just
No.
so super cool.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
It
Old
was
Man's
very neat.
Cave. Did you happen to hike Conkle's Hollow by any chance?
We did not.
No, that's my favorite in Hawking Hills is Conkle's Hollow. That's a really cool hike. But Old Man's Cave, that neat as heck.
Yeah, I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Also I mean, the park was relatively busy. Like it's a popular location apparently.
It
So,
very much is, yeah. And from
mhm.
where I live to there, it's like it's incredibly different. Incredibly different. It's probably a 2.5 hour drive for me to get there. And I've said it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been going there my whole life off and on. And it's like I don't even feel like I'm in Ohio when I go there.
Yeah.
It's like I'm out west somewhere or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So what
that's what I
about
had said.
what about Kentucky? Where did you hike at in Kentucky?
We just drove through Kentucky. We had stopped one day at Churchill Downs. We went through there on a Friday, and so they had a race going on. And my husband wanted to catch a race there, and my girls wanted to see it. I'm not a huge horse fan myself, but I
Yeah.
felt like it was something to experience. But we're gonna have to go back to Kentucky because that was just
Yeah.
kind of on our way home. So I didn't really. We were
Yeah.
at Breaks Interstate Park, which I guess part of it's in Virginia and part of that is in Kentucky. And so we were
Yeah.
there for a night, but definitely
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back out that way to do more hiking. Normally
Yeah.
I'm headed west in the summer.
Yeah, yeah. But you mentioned New River Gorge in West Virginia. Um, my wife and I did the Upper Gully one time. Um, the rafting, and
Oh
wow,
yeah.
that's something. It's the second most extreme river in the United States and fifth in the world. And I've done it
Wow.
once. I've done it once, and I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if I was 20 years younger, because we did it 17 years ago now, maybe if I was 20 years younger, I'd do it. But at my age now, I'm not doing it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we debated rafting out there. We've rafted before out in Colorado, so we decided to do the bridge walk, since
Yeah.
that was something that we hadn't experienced, and that was super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Where at in out west? You say you've been out west. Where at out west have you traveled to?
Um, Colorado numerous times. There's just so many great places to hike out there.
Yeah.
I love national parks. So
Yeah.
we've gone up to Glacier. We hiked up there. We did Iceberg Lake and Grinnell Glacier. Spent probably a good 4 or 5 days up in Montana exploring and hiking. Last summer, we did the Mighty Five in Utah. I will say I did not think about ticks near as much in Utah as I do when we're down in South Missouri or like this summer out in Virginia and West Virginia because they don't really have a whole lot of Lone Star ticks out there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, last summer we hiked in Arches National Park. We did all Mighty Five, but we just hiked in Arches. We hiked in Bryce Canyon, which I felt like honestly it was the hardest hiking in the whole trip. And then got lucky. I got passes, permits to hike Angel's Landing in Zion. So we did Angel's Landing last summer. Then just decided I needed to do a little bit more and went out to Colorado and did Manitou Incline into July. So
That's awesome.
there's, yeah, so many places out west. I think you could just spend a whole summer out there exploring and
Oh
hiking
yeah.
and
Yeah. I've only been out in the fall. I've been out for elk season, and
oh
but I've been very close to Arches. I didn't go there, but I was right down around Four Corners down there.
yeah.
We've hunted, stayed right there at Dove Creek, which is just not very far from Four Corners there. Um,
Yeah.
I love it out west. People talk about all these places out west, and I haven't seen them because when I've been out there, I'm elk hunting.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some cool stuff. I did we did take a ride up to Telluride one year. We harvested early, and we was 3 hours from Telluride. So me and another fellow, we jumped in the truck and took a ride and went up to Telluride, and that was something really really cool to see there. A
I
drive
bet.
one way into town and one way out, and the whole you're just surrounded by mountain peaks, which is just absolutely incredible. Yeah,
It is. I don't
yeah.
know how that view could get old to anybody out there looking at
Anybody?
the mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We went out to Estes Park a few years ago, when the elk were in rut. And so that was neat because we hadn't been out in the fall, so the aspen trees were still yellow, and it was just so cool to like watch the elk. They actually were in town. We watched them on a golf course one afternoon, but just bugling and chasing each other around. And I could have sat there all weekend and just watched that.
yeah, yeah. It's got to be awesome. I when we hunt, it's second rifle season, so it's like first week in November. So the rut is over. And I remember the first trip out there had one of the guys in the hunting party had been going a long time. He's like, I bought a bugle call and everything. He said, "You don't need that thing. They're not going to be bugling. The rut's over." And I remember was sitting in a shooting house and I heard a bugle. I'm like, that can't be a bugle. He told me I wouldn't hear a bugle. And then I heard it again. And it was like, they said it was a rare thing, but it was my first trip. Um, and what it was, I'd done the research, is the bull was just kind of holding the herd together. They was coming into a water hole, and I was hunting close to a water hole. And but I listened to him bugle probably 20 minutes before they come and popped up where I could see him. But yeah, I love it. I love it so much out west. Um,
Mhm.
Speaking of Kentucky, you said I always almost every episode I bring up the gorge in some way or the other, but you should really look into Red River Gorge and Natural Bridge down there in eastern Kentucky. Um,
Okay.
my wife and we spend tons of time down there. Um, I like to call it one of our sponsors. We have a sponsor for the show, which is an Airbnb down there, but it's actually mine and my wife's. But
Yeah.
we spend quite a bit of time down there in the gorge. But it's the same as like, make sure you wear your permethrin because there is a lot of Lone Star ticks in that area for sure. Yeah. So I'll get back. I'm going to get back over to medical for just a quick second. I got a couple things I forgot to ask. Um,
Okay.
a lot of people, including myself, with alpha gal, end up with something called mast cell, and they have to control their histamines.
Mhm.
Do you have any issues with your histamines and mast cell?
I mean, there's times I suspect that histamine is at play, but I do not have mast cell, so I consider myself lucky.
Yeah,
Right now, the literally only thing that I'm diagnosed with is just alpha gal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a fortunate thing for sure. So Jenna, I got one more. I don't know if you listened to the podcast or anything, but I try to end every episode with what I like to call an alpha gal surprise. So it can be good or bad. Like um, my favorite surprise for Alpha Gal was finding out Twizzlers was safe. I had a good sugar in them and they was safe. My worst was, I work outside every day, so I'm always taking bottled water. When I found out Aquafina and Dasani waters, they're filtered through bone char, which I learned the hard way. But then
Mhm.
was Alpha Gal surprises for me. Do you have anything that jumps out to you that either good or bad that you would call an Alpha Gal surprise?
I think my biggest surprise, not the good one, was shampoo and conditioner. So I had
Mm,
like the back of my head had itched for the longest time. I remember asking my hairdresser, like, does my scalp look okay? It just like drove me nuts. Then just one day at random, and you would think like you would with Alpha Gal, you're so used to checking labels that you would think to check everything. But one day I was like, I wonder if my shampoo and conditioner is vegan. And it was not. And like within 3 days of switching to a vegan shampoo, I'm like, my head does not itch anymore at all. So the biggest surprise is just all those weird little things that you have to constantly be on the lookout for that contain mammal that isn't even a food.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is a terrible thing right there, and that's something. Yeah, I was, I have to use natural. My wife gets a big tub of this all natural body wash or whatever. I got to use it as well. So, but Jenna, I really appreciate. Is there anything on your mind do you think we might have forgot or didn't cover?
I mean, I felt like we touched the farm animals pretty well. I mean, the main thing, just with anybody who lives on a farm, if they suspect alpha gal, they really need to start considering that they are reacting to their actual livestock, not just the meat that they eat inside their house at dinner. So
Yeah,
bodily fluids, manure, all those things. Even with baby goats, even when they're 2 days old, I still can't pick them up and handle them because of the dry amniotic fluid on their hair. So just being cautious, using your own personal protective gear, gloves, whatever it is. And
yeah,
not just with farming, but even just with hiking and camping. Just know what your triggers are, know how to prevent it, have your plan of action in case something does go wrong. Have your EpiPen, use it. Um, and
yeah.
just
Very good
be
advice.
cautious. But you can't just like stay in your house and quit living your life because of this. I feel like there's so many other things out there that are far worse than alpha gal. Like this can be manageable. You can live with it. I still eat all the things I used to eat. I just swap it out with dairy free or
Yeah,
ostrich. I'm not going to let it, get me down and not let
yeah,
me live the life I want to live. So.
yeah. What about pets? Any other pets? Do you have dogs or cats?
Yes, yeah. I've got I have a very clingy little mutt dog. And then last year we got another, it's actually a wiener dog who is also very needy of my attention. I am lucky I do not react to pet dander. They're both tiny dogs, so I don't react to like cattle dander either. It's mainly just bodily fluids and manure and things like that. So
Yeah,
we do have pets. My kids love pets. I feel like being farm kids, especially my youngest, if she walks in
yeah.
the house and is like, guys, look what I found, odds are it's some sort of animal that she's trying to bring into the house.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's awesome. I think just off the top of my head, I think the one thing that people's going to get out of this a lot today is you paying attention to when it's wet
Mhm.
versus dry. Like if you go to the barn or something like that. I
Yeah.
would have never, that's something that I would have never even thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. The wet versus dry. Also, just with the goats, because they have a little bit more of a solid manure. With them, it's, I mean, if you've ever had a billy goat, you know that they can kind of have an aroma. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like with the goats, what I pay attention to is if the wind's blowing from the south, because they are south of our house. And typically they don't bother me, the smell of them, unless the wind's blowing from the south. So
Wow.
just
Huh.
little things to pay attention
What do you
to.
do in that situation? Because it's your home. What do you do if
So typically, the goats are only close to the house when they're kidding. And then after that, they go on to the 40 acres that runs along our property that we rent and they
oh,
stay
I
over
see.
there. So since we do rotational grazing, I can go 6 months without seeing a cow, other than the two or three that are in the lot that are
Yeah.
getting fed out to be butchered. So
Yeah.
I am lucky that that is when we bought this property before years back before I even had Alpha Gal, like it was set up to be able to rotate. And then when we got the neighboring property, gave us an even bigger area to rotate cattle. So I'm lucky that they can be far away from me
Yeah.
for
How,
several months at a time.
how many head of cattle do you got?
We got about 30. So we have cow
Gotcha.
calf pairs. And then, like I said, the ones that we just feed out and sell as butcher
Yeah.
fat cattle. So
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
now don't ask me how many goats we have because I honestly could not tell you how many goats
Yeah.
are out.
Yeah. Do you save any goat milk?
We don't. So the goats
No.
also, they raise babies up each year and then we just sell off the kids each fall or spring, just depending on
I got you.
what we
Yeah.
decide to do with them. So,
Yeah. Your kids, they do the 4-H thing?
our youngest does FFA. We've never
Yeah.
been in 4-H. They've always wanted a very well-rounded. They want to be in sports. They want to be in this club. And so with four of them,
Yeah.
they've always all been so active that 4-H just didn't seem like something that we had time to
I
do. I
got
would
you.
have loved for them to have done 4-H. So we
Yeah.
just got FFA here last year. So my youngest is in FFA. So we
Wow.
keep telling
Just
her
got it
like
last year. That's interesting. Huh.
it is, especially since we're a
Yeah.
small rural town.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Well, I think I'm gonna just browse through. Um, I think I covered all of my questions, Jenna. I really appreciate you coming on. I got that peg stuck in the Missouri. I'll put it. You
Perfect.
say the northwest corner? Is that what you said?
Yep. So Lawson, Missouri. If you got a big map, it's probably not on there. So just go a little bit south of Cameron and put your dot there.
There you go. I was looking at it. I got a map of the United States in the house hanging on the wall um, before I came out here, and it looks like Missouri touches like 8 states.
It does. I remember
Yeah,
learning that in elementary. I think we border more states than any other state.
yeah. I was like,
Mhm.
I got to look, and I was because you hear about Missouri, Mississippi, and Arkansas,
Mhm.
being hotbeds for alpha gal. So I just kind of wanted to look at the map, and I couldn't believe I counted, and some of them are just a little bitty teeny
Little bitty.
sliver. Yeah,
Yep.
but it
You
touches
know,
like 8 states. Yeah, yeah.
every time
So
we come back from like, this summer, even just from West Virginia, and especially if we come home from somewhere out west, I'm like, why do we live in Missouri? But I always tell myself, just because, I mean, we don't have those. We have the Ozark Mountains down south, but we don't have those
yeah,
beautiful Rocky Mountains. And I'm like, well, I am halfway to anywhere in the United States, right here in the middle. So
that's a good
I
way of
can
looking at it. Yeah,
get wherever I want to get quickly. So,
yeah. It takes me a long time to get out
so
west. A
yeah,
long time. We drive out there, elk hunting. It's between 24 and 30 hours to drive out there. It's
yeah.
terrible. Yeah. Kansas, the longest, flattest, boringest state that I've ever drove across in my whole life.
I
Yeah.
know, not to say anything about negative about Kansas, but anytime we have headed to Colorado or anywhere out west, I'm like, I wish we could just like, if there was a way to bypass this or jump it over, because we road trip
Yeah.
everywhere. We pull a
Yeah.
camper, so we don't fly very often, but
Yeah.
man, Kansas, it's
It's
deceivingly
long.
big. It is
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
And then you get to
Yeah.
Colorado right there on the east side, and it's like, I'm still in Kansas because you don't see mountains till you get out there a little ways. And so
Right. Right.
I feel like
Yeah.
my kids, they cross the state line and they're like expecting to see Rockies right there after they cross the border. But
Yeah. It don't work like that. Yeah. It don't
no,
work like that.
no,
All right, Jen, it's been a great talk. I sure appreciate it. This episode, we'll get it out, be what I say, July the 15th.
Okay.
Will Winford is the next episode. And if you haven't listened a lot, it's a very good episode. He's a rock climber, mountain climber. He's actually climbed El Capitan, but he had
Oh.
some heart issues, and it finally got related back to a tick bite. And it's a very interesting. By the time this episode comes out, his will be 2 weeks old. But yeah. Anyways, Jenna, thank you so very much for coming on. I appreciate you very much. I'm gonna
Yeah,
hit this
thank you.
record button real fast here.
Thanks for
So
tuning in to Alpha Gal Outdoorsman. Make sure to hit that follow button. And until we meet again, wear your tick repellent.